some sort of code is math, and then you can copy it and move it as you please, study it, redistribute it. There's no real owner, right? It's more like math. There are two different ways of doing it. Now there are two ways to enter the market, and only two ways. There are really not three. There's arrive pre-installed, so whenever somebody buys a machine, the software is here already, doesn't have to worry about installing it. Or network effect. Network effect means, for some reason, by magic, you reach 10, 15% of the market share. And then from then on, you grow organically, because people want and need to have the same software as other people. So really, if you want to make a lasting impression in the software world, there's only two ways to get there. Well, technically, how does it look like? You've got FOSS and BOSS. FOSS, I'm sure you know, is free open source software, right? I'm sure you heard about it a lot. I don't like to call it open source software. I'll come back to that a bit later. And you've got big old school software. It's the way I like to present it, because technically, the thing is, this is probably the most. I mean, there are plenty of ways to present the situation, but this is probably the most representative annoyance about Windows or typically proprietary software. You have to fight against viruses, and then you have to fight against the antivirus. That's possibly one aspect, one of the most annoying aspects, and possibly one of the best aspect of, technically, most representative aspect of free software would be the live CD. Right? You've got this one CD there, and the whole operating system is in there. It just boots on most computer. It will work perfectly out of the box for any user. And I think technically, these two things are quite representative. We're far ahead technically. Everybody knows that. Economic. Now, as you know, it's a completely different story. I mean, two numbers to illustrate that. First, Microsoft turnover per year is $40 billion. Right? One of the biggest companies in the world. $40,000 million. Huge numbers. And despite us not liking Vista and liking to remind ourselves how bad Vista, how it doesn't sell, so on and so on. So it's 20 million units sold in the first month. Okay, we've got perhaps 10, 15 million Linux users out there. And in the first month, Microsoft sells just as much as Vista boxes as Linux users out there. So it gives you a bit of a scale of the proprietary software industry, which is highly lucrative, versus us, who's no big number to present here. It's mostly peanuts. So we like to think of ourselves as really pros because we can make really good software. But in the end, we're really a tiny player. And now that would not be included in a presentation to an investor or a business. But to me, the interest there is cultural. And there are two different visions to do that. From the BOSS industry, that would be one piece of software which is like hardware. It's a product, you buy it, and you use it to do everything. So it manages your car, your music, your player, your information you get, your news, your everything. And on the other side, you've got something which is very incomplete, always progressing, very collaborative vision of culture and how software works. So for me, I always keep that in mind. It's not a factor in moving software along. But I always keep that in mind to motivate myself, because I clearly want my children to have one of these two as when they come along, 20, 25 years. It's really important to keep in mind what the vision for software is. So okay, that's for the market overview. Just if there was a businessman, that's what I would say to him. Now, if we want to really make a difference, what's the problem? I mean, we have excellent software, brilliant. Technically, I don't think it will get much better than this. What's missing? What's the problem to finally making sure that every machine, everywhere on the planet runs free software? Software you're free to modify, to edit, to copy, to extra. And to me, there are four problems. The first one is nobody chooses his or her software. And that's really a fact. And we have to remember that, because we are the people who choose, and we choose so much that if we don't like it, we modify it and make it our own and so on. But nobody chooses his or her software. And it's not because they're stupid. It's because our consumer life is so complicated. There are millions of choices we have to make every time we want to buy something, from food to any trivial object,
that we're faced with decisions and consumer choices all the time. And when people come home, my dad, my mom, who've got something better to do than worry about their software. And perhaps a good way to present that to ourselves, to remember that, is but with an analogy. An analogy would be a car. This is a typical French car, okay, not a brilliant car, but a good car nevertheless. Typical, most sold car ever in France. And this car needs tires to run, right? This might be your car, my car, whatever. It needs tires. We have no clue what kind of tires are on this car, and what brand, and what type, and how ecological they are. It's just tires. And it's the same thing for people. The car is the computer. It runs software. It definitely needs its software. But they're not going to worry about it. It's just something that comes with it. So challenge number 1, nobody chooses his or her software. Challenge number 2, we'll never have a killer app. And killer app is this perfect program which is so good that people run over to your system just because of that killer program. And I like to remind this because we keep trying to build the perfect program. We try to build a killer app, in essence, every time, all the time. And not only that, but on the opposite, we always have killer apps on the proprietary side, which will never be really able to overcome. I mean, who hasn't heard of Photoshop when they tried to switch people to Linux? I need Photoshop so much, it's such a good program, blah, 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 blah. But on our side, every time we come up with a good idea, an innovative idea, it gets copied over, which is good. It's part of the software movement. But we'll never have a killer app. That's the result. 3, the legal environment is hostile. And this is where all the 2 previous points, we can get around them and work around this. This we have to deal with. And by this, I mean that we have 2 main problems, but there are many others. These are the most 2 represented, MP3s and DVDs. We have the code so that Joey can play his DVD and play his MP3 on his computer with free software. It's been there for a long time and it works perfectly. The problem is illegal. Yes, you buy a Linux machine today, and legally you cannot play your own legally bought DVDs and your own legally bought MP3s. And that's what legal is. And legal is only a way to say political, right? It's a political environment which is hostile to us. And we need to work towards that. So that's point number 3. Legal environment is hostile. But this is a total blocker, right? As long as Joey cannot put his DVD in his player and press play and it works, we're out of the game. Number 4, the operating system is disappearing. And now that's a little more complicated to explain. And this, I need 2 pictures. This is a computer, as you'll recognize. You have a user, some kind of interface. Then you got a hardware, and over there is the internet. Okay? That's the computer as we know it. And yay, here's our software. That's what we're good at doing. We run the hardware so the user does what he wants to do with it. Right? We're good at doing this, no problem. This is the most brilliant, probably the most brilliant piece of software that we can do this. Live CD works perfectly out of the box. It got a little more complicated when we add these 2. Added the printer and Wi-Fi, but still, we managed pretty well. We're doing fine. Now that's 2000, that's the year 2000. In year 2007, things look quite different. So it's still got your user, his computer over there. But now the internet is not something remote over there. It's something enormous. It's everywhere in your everyday life. And Joey, our user, doesn't only use a big piece of hardware over there. He's got a laptop, some gizmo, some TV, and probably some GPS, and whatever device he's bought that connects to some kind of network somewhere. And he wants to access many, many things with that. The trouble is, the way we access the internet is not totally free access anymore. So let's just take that example, the ISP. Probably 5-10 years ago, the ISP just carried data along. Your internet service provider takes your whatever you're sending and sends it over and back and forth. But now it's looking more and more into what it's transferring. So it's got a lot of interest in lowering traffic on some kinds of protocols, some kinds of files, some kinds of websites, and increasing traffic on some other websites. It starts to provide you with tons of things, suggestions, emails, websites, tons of data. Start to intervene lots more with what is carried over his network. A lot more influence. For a phone, for a device, portable device, it's 10 times worse because the network is entirely private. You have no control over what is carried over from your phone to the server, the phone server over there. So now we have not only a lot more hardware to deal with, lots of pieces everywhere. It could be your TV. You know, TV, you download movies from a remote place just to watch your movies, and not only various pieces of hardware, but also the servers over there, the private servers at the network providers. And that would be okay. That would be okay if we weren't continually sending our data over there. Now our data is stored more and more in remote services, internet services, and less in our computers. Right? Who uses Gmail? In Gmail or some kind of web application to manage email? Come on, raise your hand. Don't be afraid. No, right. It's great, isn't it? It's a brilliant piece of software which runs on a private server and hosts all of your information, all of your email over there. It's exactly as if our operating system was moving from this laptop here to some kind of diffused picture, very complicated, very messy. This is a messy picture, it's a messy situation. Now the software is running all over the place. The trouble is, it was difficult enough to change the software here on the machines. It's not over yet. But now the software on these servers all over the place will be a lot harder to change because we don't have no control of these machines. These are private servers, private networks. That's the challenge number 4. Possibly the best example of that is iTunes, right? Apple works very hard, so it's really easy to download music on your iPod legally. And the system works so that you have a chain of software from the server down to your iPod that makes it tremendously easy, back and forth. It's almost like, it's not really technically so, it's almost like every time you press play on your iPod, it streams over music from an Apple server, right? It's controlled all the way through, a very nice network, but there's no place where all the information is stored entirely. And as you know, there's plenty of great web services all over the place who store some kind of information about you, make money out of this, and that's all software coming away from my computer into some kind of network, remote network. So 4 challenges, right? Just recap, short recap. Nobody chooses his or her software. Nobody cares. We'll never see a killer app. Never. A free killer app will never happen. The legal environment is hostile. We've got to deal with this. This is blocker. This is really, can't get away with that one. And the operating system is disappearing. And the disappearance of the operating system, that's something really difficult to deal with. Now what? Now what to do about it? How can we move forward? We'll have 2 answers: fundamentals and then this breakthrough part. The fundamentals is what I deal with. That's what I work on my nonprofit that I belong to, and it has 2 parts about it. The number 1 is to talk to Joe, and we need to go back to talking to everyday users. We choose our software, we edit our software, high-power users that somehow need to be relevant and talk to Joe. And I like to display this picture. I find it very funny. A V-style machine, brand new V-style machine in a store, displaying blue screen of death, and everyone finds it funny in the room. I can see many smiles around. But this is not funny for Joe. For everyday users, the blue screen of death is not a big word. It's not a big fact. So my suggestion is we put the focus elsewhere. Right? This is typically the kind of world we're into, technical elite, which we need to get away from and start talking to Joe. And I come back to this picture of the car and the tire image, right? For Joey, if he wants to buy proprietary tires, imagine they're proprietary tires, right? V-style tires, great tires. You got 3 kinds of tires. Tire number 1 is 100 euros. Tire number 2, it's a little more flashy, a little cooler. It's 200 euros, right? And you go to 300 euros, number 3 tire. Really terribly exciting, fantastic. All the excitement you want. What about the Foss tires, right? Freedom tires. Now you got some kind of huge mess there. Because you got Bed Bath Binix tires, you got Ubuntu Binix tires, you got this open source concept Then you got Bandriva coming along, and it's not always costless, right? It's free, but in fact there's a lot of money coming around there. And Banners is pretty cool. And Bnu Sense is entirely free, completely free tires. And you got Bnu Binix, so that's the original name, that's a legitimate name. And you got this Libre tires concept. It's totally crazy, right? And Idora 7, that's the ultimate big factory-sized tire. Okay, but try to put yourself in Joey's mind. What is easier? I mean, you don't have your whole life to choose software. I have 100 euros. I'd rather spend it there. I know what I get. It's easy to understand. It's easy to know what I have, rather than face a huge choice, a very messy communication. Challenge number 2 is be relevant. And I had a single proposal here. It's pretty simple. And it's kill source code. Joey user doesn't care about source code. I mean, not the least. This is Chinese to me, because I don't write code. It's pretty Chinese to billion people out there. It doesn't make sense. And we keep talking about open source and how open source software is important. And I'm sure you can convince people that open source software is nice about open source. And if you want a demo of that, this is my dad's car, right? Renault Scenic, 2-ton car, 150 horsepower engine, and you got two yellow caps over there. One's for the oil, just in case he wants to do it himself, and one is for the wiper water. Okay, but it's a huge engine. It's there. That's the new car technology. You don't want to look. You don't want to know. People don't care. Nobody requires source code anywhere. So my proposal is to start using that term, free software, not because of ideology or going back to the original movement or whatever, because open source doesn't make sense to people. Free software might. It's a little longer to explain, but it might make sense. Shameless plug there. So that's Linux Matters is the nonprofit I co-founded with Gustavo Narea, a Spanish guy, well, a Venezuelan guy living in Spain. We work on the fundamentals. So we don't write code, we don't do anything hugely exciting, trying to impress people. We just do basic information on Linux and free software. We just make sure that Joe, when he surfs the web and looks for Linux, he gets the right information. That's our vision. Communicate the concept and importance of free software on a very large scale. So not only to specialists, not only at Tito's, but widely on the internet to anyone. We're looking for funds. That's a tiny wink there, because I'm looking for a job. We're all looking for jobs. We're looking for partnerships. We're looking we have some ideas for business, and we need any business partners in there. Please come and see me at the end. That's our main project. GetGNULinux.org. And as you can see, it's not complicated. It's not code writing. We just try to associate the keyword Linux back to some ideas of freedom and some ideas of how it's important, and basic information as to what live CD is and how Linux is not communism. Until we manage to answer things like that, why Linux is not communism, we all got some sort of ideas how to answer it and why it doesn't mean a revolution. But it takes time, it takes practice to answer it correctly, and that's what we do. We take care of that exclusively. Okay, that's the fundamentals. Talk to Joe and be relevant to him. That's the basic. But what about really making a difference? And that's what I call breakthrough. Let's really make a dent into proprietary software. And my point. It's cut on the corner. That's too bad. Okay, my point here. I try to put some business practices in making software so it's more efficient. And so my question would be, what is business rule number 1? Okay, you have a business. You start a business. What is rule number 1? And I would answer in various ways, without you never cut prices. Never engage in price war and lower prices. Always try to make yourself different. Or it could be your profit margin is your life, okay, as a percentage. Always keep a high percentage of profits margin. Never cut into that, because it's your ability to move around, to adapt yourself, to invest in things like this. But there are plenty of different answers. But I think business rule number 1 would all boil down to have a great ability to match your market. And that means there are people who are ready to pay 100 euro for a watch, people who are ready to pay $1,000 for a watch, people only ready to pay 10 euros for a watch. And you want each to find the watch he wants and pay the price he wants. Never let somebody who's ready to pay 1,000 euros for a watch get away with a 100 euro watch. Never, ever, ever. Now, I'll come and see how it makes sense, but that's a very 1950s way of, very naive ways of presenting business. We praise it as ability to match and shape your market. That means with good marketing, with good communication, you can change and model your markets and make sure that people pay more than they were originally ready to pay. That's people work at this all the time. That would be people at Porsche, making sure that you've always wanted since you were a kid to have a Porsche, right? Although maybe you were thinking about something else, but working on what you want and what your wants and desires. But we can apply this to software making. Perhaps the lesson to learn here is know your customer. Your customer is your user, even though he doesn't pay anything. But let's try to know our users better and adapt to their needs and wants. How do boss software do it? Well, it's the 1, 2, 3 strategy, right? You've got various boxes there, and they all got different prices, and you pretty easily know which box you want. In the fast world, we're so busy forking. That's the entire mess I showed you, because we have no sense of trying to make us want and make us need. We always focus on quality. That's what I call the V0.12 syndrome, right? And something that frustrates me a lot in many projects. The symptoms are: 1, a total dedication to quality. We make the best software, and that's what we do. And we make the best software ever. Quality, quality, quality. We solve bugs, we make it work smoothly, have a nice look. It's the perfect piece of software. This is it, right? It's released when it's ready, okay? And this is relevant. How many of you have heard this all the time? When is the next version of WordPress, or the next version of whichever other software coming along? It's released when it's ready, because the release plan is a set of features. You got features, you got quality points you try to add, quality you try to add to your project, and that defines the release. Next release is better. And that's release when it's ready. An overwhelming disposition to fork, right? Every time we don't like the community, we disagree on a technical point of view, then we take the whole code and we make our own special version which differs in this and that aspect. Because we have no focus on what the customer wants, we have focus on what our idea of good software is. We're dedicated to quality. And yet, and this is really, there's only one idea I want you to remember of the whole conference. Well, that would be it. Yet, quality has never been a decisive factor. Right? This is not what drives software forward. And before you try to throw tomatoes at me or things, I'm going to try to defend it. But maybe just one preliminary idea is that in the 1980s, by the time I wasn't even born, you had a variety of hardware, a variety of software, and eventually what emerged is one of 2 main types of hardware and a few types of software. But the leaders in hardware and software, I don't think at all that they have been selected on the basis of quality. They're just good at business, good at many other things, but it's not the best software which wins over. And if it was the case, then this would be on every machine you would buy in a supermarket, in MediaMarkt, or whatever. Okay? So quality is not, it's good, it's nice to have quality, but it's not what we should focus on. I tried to show this with a few products. And my favorite is OpenOffice. This is run with OpenOffice, openoffice.org, right? It's not the best Office suite ever, right? Who loves it and finds it the ultimate program? Who's proud of it so much that you'll show it to a Vista and Office user and say, look, this is what free software can do. It's the best software we can make. It's not. It's huge. It's heavy. It's confused. I mean, who's used tiles and numberings in there? It took me a long time to understand how it works. It's not a quality model, and yet it's an astonishing success. This is $100 million. Right? It's one of the highlights of free software. Why? Because it's good market analysis. People have understood here that what people wanted was an office suite that was just like Microsoft Office. It worked, was compatible with it, and had the same menu structure, and that's all they wanted. They didn't want a fast program, they didn't want a hugely easy to use program, they didn't want blah, 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 all we're trying to build all the time. They just wanted something, and the people at the OpenOffice.org community understood that. And it's really great, because it's not only a piece of software which is downloaded very often, but also it's a major factor in opening work file protocols. You heard about ODT and the ECMA standards, the ISO standards. All people, including Steve Ballmer, starting to speak about standards that would never have happened had OpenOffice.org not been here. It's really moving forward. It's helping us reading proprietary file formats. It's a huge, to me, it's a huge success. That was not a quality example. Okay, second example, it's Firefox from Mozilla. And it found a market segment of its own. It's a good market analysis. Who wanted what? There was a wide gap in a browser market. Need for a funky, alternative, different browser, right? People wanted something different. There's only one browser around. And, okay, granted, it's high quality. It's a high quality product for one of the most stable programs around. But quality was not the winning recipe. And if you don't believe me, think of the Mozilla application suite. That was there way before Firefox. Over 1 year, 2 years maybe, before it worked perfect. It's the same code. Worked perfectly, browsed the web exactly the same. But it was not what people wanted. People wanted a standalone program, a very cool logo, a very cool name, very cool buttons and things, tabs, things like that. The tabs were there already. It was not quality that was what drove the users there. It was some kind of idea of a program that people wanted. It's good branding, good adaptation to the market, understanding what people wanted. It's a good example of a community that talked to Joe, because there are $100 million, I think, again, about the same number as OpenOffice. And it's got a problem, though, in my opinion, is that the majority of users have no clue it's free software, free or even open source software. And so the problem with Mozilla is it must continually prove its users that it's the best software around. Every new release, every time on Joey's VStack computer, somehow Internet Explorer rises again from the ashes. You thought you had killed it, but there it comes again. And now Joe must make the decision, oh, it's nice, Internet Explorer is nice. Why is Mozilla better? Why is Firefox better? Every time Firefox has to show itself better, because there are no very strong underlying marketing values there. It's the free software, the open source aspect of the software is not put forward. It's not something that can forward. And perhaps the third example, I'm really taking the highlights of free software that works. Is Ubuntu. As you brandished it, and there's a Ubuntu sticker on my computer. So, I like the community, I like the software, but I'm just a Joe user. I'm not a power user. And the market segments, I think, is friendly. And whatever you want to do, Canonical and the Ubuntu community say, okay, we've got the friendly version. It's not the ultimate version, it's not the power user version, it's friendly. And I think what really makes a difference is a lot of work outside of code writing. Okay, it's good code, it's good quality, but there's a huge focus on branding, so making it friendly and making sure you've got the same marketing, even though there are different versions. The same Ubuntu community, even though you have Kubuntu and Edubuntu and whichever else there is. All the focus is put back on Ubuntu. They put forward, they talk about drivers a lot. They work a lot on that, I think. And pre-installing, famously, Dell now pre-installs Ubuntu. They work a lot outside of just the software itself and try to move forward on other sides. And what I like about them is they're not afraid to be relevant. They're not afraid to say it's free software. You're free to copy it. You're free to modify it. It's written there in a long paragraph somewhere here. And other communities could take a hint. Especially I'm thinking about the French Mandriva. I'm French, so it's not a personal insult or whatever. But Mandriva is able to sell you a 60€ DVD with Linux on free software in it. And you have no hints whatsoever. You're reading the box, the install process, the usage. After 5 years of usage, you have no clue it's free software. You never talk about it. Never talk. The Ubuntu community is not afraid of talking about, of showing the business model behind it. Okay, we sell services for servers and professionals. That's what you're not afraid to be relevant. Not afraid to say we're free software. Okay, so what does it all wrap up to? And I would sum it up like this. This is a checklist for sharpening your free software. So the tone is, okay, you're part of a free software community. You write free software. And it's pretty cool. You do better than me because I can't write code. I'm very frustrated about it. You participate in great movements, great societal movement, great technical movements, amazing. But now, if you really want to make your software sharp, not just good software, software which will really cut into proprietary software. This is a checklist. Well, my version of the checklist. Talk to Joe and be relevant. I think I spent a lot of time on that already. So go down, think who your user is, try to talk to him. If you cannot explain, if you don't have the space to explain what Linux is on your Linux distribution page, well, put a link to a place that does it well. Mine, for example, but there are plenty of other places. Really think of Joe who doesn't have a clue what KDE, what GNOME is. Try to explain it or put relevant links on your website about it. It's really important. That's the hard part. Fit in a new picture for software. Remember that huge internet and all these servers running proprietary software. So the question here would be, does your software depend entirely on free software running on this bit of hardware here? Or does it fit in the new picture where servers run software all the time and carry data all over the internet? That's hard. I have no real detailed answer to that. But it's something we have to think about because I think we could be losing the battle on that ground. Okay, fix security bugs. People don't want software that destroys their data or sends their data to some bot on the internet. Okay? So it needs to be safe and secure. But otherwise, don't spend all your time fixing bugs. Spend the rest on marketing. And marketing, I don't mean a nice shiny logo. I mean market. Who is your user? What does he want out of your software? Try to know that. Specifically, release when it's wanted, not when it's ready. Okay? Microsoft doesn't wait until its software is ready to release, right? Yet it works perfectly. No problem. Economically, Microsoft is fine for the next 10 years. Release when it's wanted. Avoid forking at all costs. And this is marketing. This is making sure you have a cool community where people feel at home and will not want to take your code and do the same thing with a little technical twist that's different. At all costs, avoid forking. I think that's the reason why Ubuntu has a Kubuntu version. I think it's doesn't make a lot of sense to a 3 million, 10 million, 100 million user base to have Ubuntu or Kubuntu. It makes sense to the Ubuntu community because it avoids forking. They keep the same marketing and they make a small derivative of Kubuntu on the side, which doesn't play a huge role in the Ubuntu community. Well, if there are Ubuntu people in the room, please do tell. Correct. Join the FSF, Free Software Foundation. This is not a joke, right? This is because of this MP3 and DVD thing. It doesn't seem related directly, but this is a legal problem. Remember, this is a political problem. We need to change the laws. That's the European EU CD derivative, and in every country you have your own version of a local law that applies to this EU CD European directive. Okay? But to change this, to enable Joe to play DVDs legally on his computer, to find the DVD player in his computer when he buys it, we need to join the FSF. We need to have a big pool of people who do some activism, some political activism. We need to be together. It makes a huge difference when the FSF or the April in France or whatever local group comes with 1,500 users behind them, or just 12 users, or just 150 users. When you come to a local representative, to a political person, it makes a huge difference in your weights and what you can achieve. So joining this, it doesn't cost a lot of money, and it makes a huge difference. Okay, I'm done. Take home. Now, what's remember? A short summary. The community is still a tiny player. Okay, we do the best software around, yet we're still hugely neglected in the economical world. Free software needs to be made relevant to to the people who are going to use it in the end. We need to really show why we're important. Quality is not a priority. I think I spent a lot of time on this, but this is not a priority. Safety is a priority, but quality, the best software around, this is not the way we're going to win it. Okay. And business thinking of marketing, thinking of basic business processes can help break and really help us make a difference and try to dent into Microsoft monopoly or Adobe monopoly. And I like to finish with that quote. It's one of my favorite quotes. And the day came when the risk to remain tight in the bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. And I think it applies nicely to my situation for two ways. Because first, for free software, because I think it's time where you move out. It's a tiny bud here. It's boiling with good ideas, and really, it's time to come out. And also because 6 months ago, I stopped all my studies and job to work in my nonprofit, and it really felt more painful to not do it than actually do it, although I haven't earned a single euro ever since. So thanks very much. That's my name, Olivier, up there, with my email. So please do send an email if you have any question or you're not confident enough to ask one here. This is the Linux Parish. Don't fail to visit that website. That's what we do. That's the non-profit organization. We've got various websites we host and we work on to explain free software and Linux to everyday users. So, and last thing, we've got very cool t-shirts for sale. GNU Linux t-shirts for sale. So if you want one, they're only 18 euros. That's total ripoff, but it pays for these server costs and travels to conferences. So thanks very much. That's all I have to say. If there are questions, with pleasure.
You said that forking need to be avoided at all costs. So the users feel at home with the software, but the developers need to feel at home as well. Yes, what should you do when they don't agree with project goals or whatever?
Right, it's a good question. I'm not the head of development myself, but really need to make the point that just because technically, most of forks I think are because of technical grounds, not because of the way the software is going. I think, again, if you really make the point within your community that quality is not the primary factor, it's not exclusively what you're looking after, then you can make much bigger compromises on how the code is written. And it's explaining what a shame it is that the whole fork, the whole part of the community will waste away into a fork and then pass merge back again. It's what a waste of energy that we have 300, 400, 500 Linux distributions instead of 20 or 100. So I don't have a precise answer. The developer needs to feel at home, but it's a job. It's your job as a team leader to just make sure that you have good marketing, have good atmosphere in there, and that the technical superiority is not the primary factor. Not real and natural.
Do you have any further ideas about the operating system disappearing? I find that myself also very interesting, and tomorrow I will be giving a talk about Web 2.0 and freedoms and things like that. But what do you think about it? What are your further ideas about it? How could it be tackled?
and puzzled. I'm really puzzled by the whole thing. I see myself joining Gmail and various other accounts and find it so cool, and having really a lot of trouble stepping back down. I'm trying to close my Gmail account. It's taking time. I think we need to come up with really good business ideas, because it's a lot of business, a lot of money running on the web. That's the biggest reason why it's spreading away. It's big players. Google making a lot of money in Gmail. I'm looking for examples, typical examples of what really works well, and I've only found one. There are probably very good other ones as well. Business models on the internet with free software, and I only know of WordPress. So WordPress, they have WordPress.org. That's the software you download, you use for yourself on your server, on your website, whatever. And you have WordPress.com, on which they use that free software, and they lock the executables. So you just log in and you have a small blog for yourself, which is a little restricted, and they make money like this. You pay them a little for extra ads, whatever. But it's the only software, the only Web 2.0 or at least web service that runs in free software that I know of, and still generates money.
Another good example that you showed was Wikipedia. I think that's usually successful too, at least in terms of what they mean for people, or what community they read.
Yes, but Wikipedia difference is it's not really driven. It goes where people drive it all over the place. It's not one piece of software. But yes, Wikipedia is the success of Wikipedia is totally amazing. But if you have more examples, more ideas about Gmail lights or Google Map lights that are free, please bring them forward.
Yeah, you can come to my talk tomorrow at 3 o'clock.
Come to his talk.
You mentioned earlier that we will never produce a killer app. Could you explain in more detail why not? What's the problem with coming up with a killer app within the free software community?
Oh, it's not a problem. It's that every time we make a great improvement in KDE, it turns up in GNOME as well, or GNOME and KDE. And every time you have a great application, which is going to come up for Linux, it's going to be ported to Windows. Every time you have some, it's the nature of free software. It's great. It's mathematics. You can take equations here and there. You can pick code and mix and match. It's a great feature. I like it. I like it that to know that one community does not have exclusivity of that idea, of that feature. But in the end, it makes that no single free software project will stand out and draw everyone to it. Because they'll always be porting some sort of mix-match with proprietary software at some point. That's my fear. That's my fear. It's not a technical limitation. It's a feature of free software. It's not a bug, it's a feature.
Do you have any suggestions of what to tell Joe?
What to tell Joe?
Yeah, how to explain it to you.
On how free software is important?
Yeah, I often try to explain it. It's difficult for people to understand the concept of free other than not to pay for it.
Right, yeah, I know. Hard. Well, I like the mathematics explanation. Because even people who don't like maths recognize that at least you don't own an equation. You can have an equation named after you, but then you cannot restrict how the equation is used. Parabola, it's a parabola. Well, you can do whatever you want with it, but you cannot restrict people from looking at the source. That's one example I like to use. There are plenty. Explain that the information you read depends a lot on where you go and what your software allows you to do. If your software is not free, then the information which flows over it can be, or at least could be influenced by the software. So free software guarantees that you have freedom, just like freedom of speech allows freedom of ideas. You gotta read some books and a lot of practice. I don't have any killer idea for free software generally, but we have to be able to. My pet peeve was Linux and communism. It took me 6 months to come up with a good answer to why Linux is not communism. We're not changing the whole government, killing everybody, and starving developers because we use free software. right? There are many things. Go to getgnulinux.org and got a few frequently asked questions to try to answer this misconceptions about free software. Got a few of these. No killer idea.
I agree with everything you said, but maybe there's one thing missing. Tomorrow there's a presentation about how to use Linux on the desktops, especially meant for Joe. And I've seen that presentation in an environment of people who all use heavy Windows users. At the end they said, oh, is it like that? Is it that simple? Is it that beautiful? I like to use it. But there's one thing, how can I change? How will I change? How will I throw away my Microsoft Word documents, something like that? Eh? How do I make the change? And there they had such a barrier that they couldn't overcome that. And I think that would be the only thing I could say about your. I was missing that in your presentation.
Yes, I agree, but it's mostly because I don't constantly do that because it's so hard to do, or maybe it's not my area. But I would say install parties are the best place to get to switch. So come over to install party near you. That's what I would say to somebody. But now as to how to make the switch, make sure your files are saved, make sure your printer will work with Ubuntu, so you want to throw away your printer and so on. It's indeed a huge difference.
That was really there, buried. You know, your obstacles. That is the obstacle I missed in your presentation.
It's an obstacle, but I think there's an aspect of it which is that once you got new computers coming up with Linux, the switch will be a lot easier. I've seen many people throw away the whole computer because their Windows was crumbling down, it was being slow and dusty. But the real need for new hardware wasn't there. Because the software was coming down, they just wanted something new, already there, already working, already nice enough. Or at least the whole hard drive would go the computer shop because they wanted new Windows on it. So once you can easily find Linux computers, maybe that will help as well. People are ready to throw away their old computer. But again, I don't have a head-on answer to that. One more question from this?
As a general note, what do you think? A world full of free software and no proprietary software. Is it possible or not?
Yeah, it's quite possible. But we have to look out of writing good code. That's almost the point of the presentation. I would say. We have to really watch out for what is happening. Probably the main obstacle will not be killing Microsoft, but be killing Google and all the services that go around it. That's my main fear. We concentrate too much on making the hardware here work. So we have to think about a whole array of ideas. But to me, it's possible. Yeah, it's my dream. What I work on every day. I think it's possible.
But you talk about we and you mean the community, the open source free software community. There's the aspect of companies as well. All companies would need to publish their software as free software. Will it be done? When? Why would companies do it?
Well, existing proprietary software companies will never publish it. I don't think so personally. They'll just fade away. Because at some time we realize that free software is as obvious as free economy or free speech. It will be obvious. So I hope at some point to people that freedom of information is as obvious as freedom of speech. So these companies will die out.
So basically you say that software companies will disappear.
Proprietary software companies. Canonical is here to stay, that's for sure. Canonical, Red Hat, they're not going away, that's for sure. Now the question is, whether it's in 5, 10, 15 years, but these companies are staying here, that's for sure. Yeah, I have a lot of faith. Yeah, no problem with that. How about you?
I'm not. I haven't made up my mind yet. That's why I ask it. I came here to ask that question to someone, and it's you today. So.
Right in time. I think that's it. If you have any more questions, please do come over and buy me a wonderful T-shirt. But it's not a requisite. Thanks very much.